Hello. In this fourth lecture video for week 3, the key point is that audiences have gone from largely passive to largely active within the last 20 years. So audience research too has had to change. Even audiences at actual events have become mediated, as we have gone from this to this. Older theories of the audience, such as the effects model, try to understand the effect or influence media have on audiences. As we have seen, they ask, what do media do to people? Other older theories also ask, what do people do with media? Those approaches are still relevant and they're still used, but they've had to evolve to take account of what we call active audiences. In this case, not only are audiences participating in media as a two-way communication, but they are reproducing media, such as in fan fiction and cosplay, and even producing their own original media, making it a three-way process. The question here could be, how and why do people participate in media? As I mentioned in the first video this week, it's difficult to study audiences. This is even more so today when the audience is fragmented. That is, there are multiple ways of consuming media at no set time or place. Studies today look particularly at audience agency. We can say that the media, as a collective entity, can be seen as a product of human agency more than ever before. Human agency means that people, the audience, determine to a greater degree how, when, why, and even where they will use media. And thus they influence it to different degrees depending on how they do this. Time and space are now flexible in ways that were unthinkable even 20 years ago. Think of the entertainment industry. It can be argued that the new type of tailor-made entertainment means that the balance of power is with the consumer, rather than with the professional producer and distributor, as it used to be when there was a much more limited array of entertainment possibilities on offer. So a major idea to think about this week is how active audiences have changed the ways media is consumed, the ways it is distributed and produced both globally and locally. Scholars such as the US Professor Henry Jenkins study new ways of audience involvement in what is termed participatory culture. This means that we all participate in forming culture rather than being fed particular and limited products created by media elites. Media elites, of course, do still have some power. This can even be considerable. Consider, for example, how Apple tries to dictate how you use its products. It's one of the reasons you can no longer see videos for this unit on Moodle modules if you're using Safari. Also consider Facebook, which recently banned Australians from sharing news sources while it debated with the Australian government the details of a new law on paying these news sources. The news is back on Facebook in Australia, but concessions were required on both sides. An important area in the study of active audiences is that of convergence and integration. Convergence is the process by which previously separate media forms, such as TV, radio, telephones, books, and newspapers, are combined. A single platform or single device may put many formally disparate media forms together. This transforms media use into an integrated experience, remembering also that we also use lots of different devices, depending on the function of what we want at the time. The best example of this integrated experience and convergence is that of the smartphone. Who knew a couple of decades ago that one day our phone, camera, TV, film, email, and so many other media forms would be combined into just one small gadget. Maybe some tech enthusiasts knew, but for the average person, it was either unimaginable or the stuff of science fiction. Previously, people didn't even associate a camera with a phone, for example. That would have seemed bizarre. This development in technology is a fundamental issue that has transformed the way we as audiences interact with media and communications. Henry Jenkins refers to this integration as convergence culture. On the slide is a quotation from Jenkins's seminal book, Convergence Culture, Where Old and New Media Collide. As he says, convergence culture is both a top-down, corporate-driven process and a bottom-up, consumer-driven process. Media companies are learning how to accelerate the flow of media content across delivery channels to expand revenue opportunities, broaden markets, and reinforce viewer commitments. Consumers are learning how to use different media technologies to bring the flow of media more fully under their control and to interact with other users. It's well worth accessing this book if you're interested in convergence culture. Even though it's quite old now, the basic concepts that Jenkins uses are still the basis of much of today's analysis of what has happened since 2006. We can see the effect of this change to convergence technology in Australia, for example, and the changing habits of the population. The Australian Communications and Media Authority does a communications report every 2 years, with the latest one released in 2019. There's a link on the slide where you can go to download that report. And as always, you can find these slides separately uploaded into the week's content. Just a few of the interesting statistics are that 89% of Australians have mobile phones, 83% accessed video online, and 46% used a music streaming service. And most interestingly, I think, 40% of Australians used 5 or more types of devices. In summary, we can say there are 2 aspects of emerging media technology ecology, distinct but connected. Individualized media consumption, such as streamed TV and film viewing, individual viewing devices, playlists, and so on. And number 2, participatory media production. Audiences and consumers themselves are more interactive and collaborative than ever before, engaged in collaborative production of what we call we media. Wikis, crowdsourcing, network journalism, social media, forums, peer-to-peer media are other examples. Jenkins notes that an important aspect of this new terrain is that people in participatory culture produce media not necessarily to make money, but often to share it with each other. The group of people formerly known as the audience are now trying to gain an audience themselves in terms of gathering followers, friends, content shares, and likes. Reflexivity and ethnography are important to researchers. Reflexivity is where the researcher's presence becomes part of what is being investigated. And ethnography can involve using your own experience and observations to inform your research. This wasn't always so. It used to be considered unscientific to be reflective or reflexive, or to use your personal, thus subjective experiences in your research. In some scholarly study, this is still the case. But in communications, for the most part, we embrace reflexivity and ethnographic research. After all, a researcher of media is also a consumer and producer of media. The ethnographic method is a very broad type of method, but basically it involves participant observation as part of a field of research. It's the study of people in their own environment, and to do it, You use methods such as face-to-face interviews and participating in the activities of your subjects yourself. Ethnography is used not just in university or academic research, but out in the world of industry. One of the things researchers use it to do is to try to see the future and to invent the types of new technology people will want to use. What you are trying to find out is how people live their lives. So the researcher is interested in finding out about society and culture from the point of view of the study's subjects themselves. Here's a list of further reading that will be useful to you in this area. You should be able to access most of these books through the library, though unfortunately some of them won't be available online. For our overseas students, go to the library site for further information about resources and how to access them. That's all for now. Next week, we'll look at the final conceptual approach, digital disruption, policy and regulation. Be sure to complete the online activities before your next tutorial. Thanks for viewing.